Hello, my friends. HM here. Now we have to talk about this. The US election is now pretty much over, and Trump has won by a landslide. That will have implications for the world, and it will have implications for the Ukraine war, for Europe, and also for NATO. And my video will be a few thoughts about that. And also many more videos are coming in the future because I'm going to make short videos like this one where I give my thoughts about stuff that is happening in the world. And then I'll also continue to make longer videos where I've spent like hundreds of hours in preparing the videos. So I'll make both types of videos. But in order for my channel to grow, I know I have to make many more videos. There's no other way. That's why I'm going to make videos like this one. But if you think it's interesting to hear what this new Trump presidency will mean for the war in Ukraine and also NATO and Europe, then keep watching. Okay, so here we can see that Trump has clearly won. He already has the majority of these electoral votes to secure the presidency. He also won the Senate. They didn't have that before, the Republicans. And the House is so far still undecided. He hasn't won it, but it almost looks like he's also going to win the House, so Republicans will have a majority there as well. Now, you could say the good thing about this is that it's not a tight vote like it has been previously, where like 300 votes in a small state could decide who would become president. That would have been bad for US democracy, because then the losing part would say, well, this was not fair and there was voter fraud, and it would be a constitutional crisis. This time it's quite clear Trump has won. It was a democratic election. There might have been some voter fraud somewhere, but it's not anything that would have changed this result, and everybody knows that. Perhaps not everybody. There'll always be some extremist that will claim that it wasn't fair and blah blah blah. But the good thing is there is no doubt about it. The majority of people who can think rationally will say, okay, this is a clear win. Trump is in power. He has been given this mandate by the US people. There's no doubt about it. So that's a good part of it. The not so good part of it is Trump is delusional about a lot of international matters. He thinks he can resolve the Ukraine conflict just by putting the parties together, and then he'll have peace an hour after. That's not going to happen. One of the reasons that he cannot bring an easy peace for Ukraine is that if Trump just has an idea, okay, Russia will get the territory they have already taken and Ukraine will keep what they already control. Let's say that's the peace plan that Trump will propose. The problem with that peace plan is that if you give an authoritarian regime like Russia a reward for breaking all the rules in the world about invading another country, then every dictator in the world can see, okay, we can just invade another country and then take it, and then we can keep it. And that means you are incentivizing war. So you will start wars everywhere in the world. China will start grabbing nearby countries, Taiwan. All kind of things will happen if you can see that you can get away with stealing from other countries. And Trump has been very vocal about how he said he will get a peace deal done. There's not much peace in it, but he calls it that, a peace deal. Well, he will tell Russia, if you don't accept this agreement, then we'll send all the weapons Ukraine need to beat you out. And he will tell Ukraine, if you don't accept this agreement, then we're cutting the weapons from you altogether. And then Russia will take even more. And, you know, he might be able to force Ukraine and Russia on these terms to have at least a ceasefire where they'll just stop the fighting where it currently is. That might be possible. And then nothing will happen other than Russia will prepare for the next war with more troops when they think they have enough strength to attack again. So war will return. And Ukraine, of course, will also spend their time digging trench lines and preparing for the inevitable attack by Russia. So you won't really have peace by it. So that's what I think I know it will happen. It won't bring peace. It might bring a ceasefire temporarily, but then the war will break out on a later time. And it will not be just that the borders just shut down where they are today. Ukraine needs to get their country back. And I think Ukraine will never relent on trying to get their country back. So you have guaranteed war in Ukraine in the future if Ukraine don't get their country back. And I think Trump is delusional if he thinks otherwise. Also, despite what Trump has said about this war in Ukraine, that it's United States that have done all the aid and all the military equipment for Ukraine, that's not true. United States has delivered less than half of all the aid. I have a big list of countries that are donating weapons to Ukraine. And let me bring it up here. Now here I have this table. It shows all the countries who are donating military aid and also financial aid to Ukraine. We have Ukraine here, and then we have Poland, Finland, Norway, all these countries that are down here. There, everybody are donating military aid for Ukraine. This is a table I made, spent many hours on listing all the military spendings by all the democratic countries in the world, and also what kind of equipment these militaries have. Because I thought with my channel I need to know and understand what is the military strength of various countries in the world, in particular the free and democratic countries, and then also our enemies. So I made this table. I have focused on 4 conflict zones: the Russian-Ukrainian war, and also the Taiwan potential war, and also the North Korea-South Korea potential war, and the war that Iran is waging on Israel and all the countries that are relevant for that. So that's what I did in this table. I'll make it available, this table, below the video with a link, so you can use it yourself to judge what's up and down in this world in terms of military strength. Anyway, what I want to say is that there are a lot of people who are helping Ukraine in this war, and that's not going to stop just because the US has a new president. Maybe I should also show you a Wikipedia page that lists all the aid that has come into Ukraine. This is this Wikipedia page. It shows that as of March 2024, $380 billion worth of aid has gone to Ukraine, including $118 billion in direct military aid from various countries. And then we go down here, then we can see as of September 2024, US has provided $174 billion of aid for Ukraine, both military and financial. So a lot of aid is coming to Ukraine, and if we have a termination date of September, the total aid from the world to Ukraine is about $450 billion. Of those, the US is clearly the biggest donor with $174 billion. But it's not the majority. A clear majority is everybody else. And then we have this list here that is enormous. It is like hundreds of meters long that lists all the weapons that have gone from various countries into Ukraine. It's just huge. But of course you can get a lot of stuff for $450 billion, although not all of it is military aid. My point here is that as long as Trump doesn't outright bar export of weapons to Ukraine, all we can do here in Europe is, because we have the money here in Europe, we can just say, okay, you don't want to pay any more for this. That might be understandable. You might say it's not your war. That's not true. It's also the war of the United States here in Europe, because United States are having business with Europe, and it should much prefer that Europe was controlled by democratic countries and not by an authoritarian ruler in Russia. So it is also something that matters for the United States. But all I say here is that as long as Trump doesn't outright block military sales to Ukraine, then I think we can keep the level of weapons flowing into Ukraine exactly the same, but Europe just has to pay for it. I can tell you my brother country, the Norwegians, I'm from Denmark, they have an oil and gas wealth fund where they simply took the surplus they have made from oil and gas and took the money from that aside. They have $1,500 billion in that. Norway alone can easily pay a lack of the United States paid $70 billion per year to Ukraine. And Norway can easily do that alone if they decided to. And Norway will be interested to do it if their own country is at risk of being invaded by Russia. So what I'm saying here is that I do believe that there are still plenty of countries that will be behind Ukraine, that will help Ukraine get their territory back. And this idea Trump has about ending the war, that's not going to happen. That's delusional. It's not going to end. So one of the things I do think will happen because of the Trump presidency is that Europe will have to pay a lot more, nearly all of it, but I also hope that Trump will not stop the sale of weapons to Ukraine for this war. I don't think they will stop it because Trump is a businessman. Why shouldn't the US profit from selling a lot of weapons for this war? After all, the United States have the world's largest military industry that can profit from this. What else do I think will happen from a Trump presidency, aside from Europe paying a lot more of the bills for the war in Ukraine? Well, I think actually Trump will withdraw from NATO. I think NATO will die. And maybe that's a good thing long term. NATO is kind of unable to function because of countries like Hungary that blocks all the decisions all the time, doing the biddings of Putin. So we really need another military organization. Another thing I don't like about NATO is that it has member countries that are not democratic. Turkey is not a democratic country. Why is Turkey member of NATO? It's an authoritarian regime. It's becoming more and more Islamist, more and more suppressive of its population. It should not be part of NATO. We need a new military organization that can do away with some of the problems that are inherently built into NATO and that will doom NATO long term. We need an organization that is for military cooperation between free and democratic countries. That will be one requirement for membership. And also members that fail to support democracy and freedom, there should be a mechanism for the other members of the organization to vote to throw that member out of the organization. Another thing that should happen in this new organization is that we should have a minimum level of contribution to military spending, like minimum 2%. You know, in a wartime situation, maybe it should be minimum 3%. And in a peacetime, maybe it should be minimum 1.5%. But we cannot have that somebody are free riding on the military spending, as Trump has pointed out. So I do agree with him on that one. So we need a new military organization that has that requirement. And we also don't need to have it. NATO is the North Atlantic something military cooperation. It shouldn't be North Atlantic. It should be for everybody in the world that are free and democratic and who are willing to defend other countries who are free and democratic and also are willing to spend a minimum level on military spending. So we need a new organization, and I don't think necessarily it's a bad thing that NATO will fail, but I think actually Trump will pull out of NATO and that will make that organization doomed. Another thing I think will happen is that I don't think European countries, NATO countries, will no longer, okay, we can't count on help from United States. And that means we need our own nuclear weapons. That will be an outcome of this. I think Scandinavian countries, the Baltics, Poland and Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, those countries that are at the forefront of being invaded by Russia, we need our own nuclear weapons, no doubt about it. That'll be a fallout from this. We need to have a nuclear program set up so we can make some 500 kilo nuclear warheads that we can put in ballistic missiles and cruise missiles and have the ability to obliterate all of Russia if they try to invade us. Because that's the ultimate security, that is, that we have the ability to obliterate Russia. If they are obliterating us, then at least we'll have the joy of knowing that we also got to them and killed all of them. That's a bleak future, but the thing is, nuclear weapons hasn't led to wars. No two nuclear countries have attacked each other, so maybe it will bring peace, because if everybody have nukes, you don't want to start a war if everybody have nukes. Before I finish off this video, I want to tell you about the next video I hope to make. It is a victory plan here for Ukraine and about game-changing weapons Ukraine need to kick Russia out of Ukraine. And I think I'll call it the key weapons that will secure victory for Ukraine. And I have them down here in this spreadsheet. It's the same spreadsheet that contain all the countries with all the armies and the strength of the armies. As you can see here, I have some long-range missiles listed. I have some aircraft, anti-aircraft systems listed, and also some Air Force weapons listed. These weapons, if Ukraine got them, they will win the war over Russia, and Russia can't do much about it. And it's not that they cost a whole lot. I've also summed the cost up for what will it cost to give Ukraine these weapons. It's really very little. We just saw that Ukraine got like $450 billion in support. These weapons extra will only cost, well, the long-range missiles will cost $2.5 billion. The anti-aircraft systems here will cost $2.2 billion. And then these Air Force weapons will cost $4.7 billion. These are tiny, tiny amounts. And I guarantee you, if Ukraine get these weapons, they will win the war over Russia. Russia will be defeated utterly, and they will have all their heavy army weapons stranded. They can't even bring them back to Russia. Ukraine will take them over and use them to defend Ukraine against another Russian future attack. But you should subscribe to my channel if you want to see that video. It's forthcoming. But I'm posting this spreadsheet, although it's not completely finished. It's posted below my video, and for those who absolutely need to see it now, they can start reading about it right away. But that's really all I have to say, and I thank you for watching this video. So have a great life in freedom and democracy. Goodbye.